Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Chris Buncic, who's the president and CEO of Condor Resources, who've been in business for more than 18 years as a junior explorer and project generator. The company's focused exclusively in Peru for the past decade and has three joint ventured on three projects with some other developers. Chakana Copper, Element 79 and Teck Resources, retaining economic interest in those projects through royalties or minority positions, as well as receiving milestone cash payments along the way. This is a mechanical engineer and followed this with an MBA in finance, and his background has been in equity markets before moving into the C-suite over the last sort of 10 years or so, having held a number of CEO positions with some exploration companies. Now he's obviously the CEO of Condor since April. He's going to tell us a little bit more about the story behind the company, the key projects they're working on, and what Peru is like as a mining jurisdiction. Chris, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. So as we always start these podcasts off, just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about your career. Obviously, I mentioned briefly in the introduction a little bit about your background, but in your own words, I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about your career so those that are listening know a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's been interesting. It's been a little bit diverse. I didn't start off to set out into mining. Obviously, I went to University of Toronto, studied mechanical engineering, and found myself in a completely different industry for 5 or 6 years. And at that time, met a host of great guys. At the company I was at, that introduced me to the stock market, and I was like, "Wow, this is awesome! Stocks are amazing. I got to get into this." And so, I'm joking, but I had always intended to go back and do an MBA. And so when I did, I wanted to focus on capital markets. And so I did every finance course I could get, and ended up on Bay Street here in Toronto in equity research. Bay Street's like the Canadian Wall Street, right? Except scaled way back. And so I was at a couple of brokerage firms doing equity research for about 7 years. And, challenging markets. Things were, a little bit different. And I decided at some point in my career, I think I want to go corporate. And I was introduced to some great guys at, one of these offices that manage a number of companies. And so I got into it that way, and ended up as, I had several corporate management roles. I was the CEO at one of them, which was a very small miner called, or exploration company called Teck Resources. And we were looking for a good project to put into that company. And so it took several years. We kicked a lot of tires, found myself in a number of countries, traveled the world, frankly, looking for some good assets. I was in Papua New Guinea, I was in Nigeria, I was in Brazil. And ultimately in 2016, we came across the Nearstar process. And Nearstar was the old Union Miniere, it's now Trafigura. And they had acquired 10 mines back in 2011 when they bought Breakwater Resources and Farallon Resources. And so they were selling all of these mines in a process, in a very large process. And so we took a look at the three that were still producing, bid on 2 of them, and then ultimately won El Machito. And for the El Machito mine is a lead zinc silver producer in Honduras. And so we acquired that in 2016. We raised $40 million with Dundee Securities and later 8 Capital, and put that mine back on a good path. And so over the course of the first year, we doubled our production. We got it back to profitability and cash flow positive. So it's a great story. And we rebranded as Ascendant Resources. And Ascendant is still around today. One of the other acquisitions was a project called Lagoa Salgada, which is a polymetallic VMS project in the Iberian Pyrite Belt in Portugal. And they continue to work on that project. During the pandemic, the markets were just getting beat up, and we were forced to, because of where the price of zinc had gone. It took out Trevali, right? The zinc price was very, very low, and we were put in a position where we had to sell El Machito. And at that time, I was looking for something new. Started a company that was focused on copper exploration in Chile with some ex-Freeport-McMoRan executives, and we advanced that and took that public just last year. And then, same story, that I think the strategy changed a little bit, and I was looking for a change with a new team, and Condor was a fantastic opportunity. It's been in production it's been in operations since 2003. They've got a huge host of opportunities, which we'll talk about later. And, I find myself in a great seat here looking for some great growth opportunities to advance those in the course of the next coming years.
Right. Wondering if you could give us a snapshot of Condor Resources and I suppose the story behind the company. And also, what's the focus for the company? And now, obviously, you're on board.
Yeah, so Condor has been around since, I guess it was incorporated back in 2003. So it's been around for more than 20 years. And it was a different CEO than the former CEO that I've met. The board has changed somewhat, and our current VP Exploration didn't join until 2007. But it's been in business for a long time. And it started out as an exploration company looking at projects in Chile and later Peru and Argentina. And over time, it has really just focused solely on Peru after coming out of those other countries. And part of the reason is that we've got a great team based in Lima, led by Ever Marquez, who is our VP Exploration. And Ever's got a great background, history of discovery. He was a principal geologist at Newmont, Peru, when they found the Brea Pampa mine, which is a past-producing gold mine. It was later run by Buenaventura, and so he's got a long history in Peru, and he's backed by a really good team, and they've gone on to find a lot of very prospective projects in country, and at the same time, they do an excellent job of managing the social aspects of exploration. With this long track record of success, without leaving a large footprint behind them, they've been very successful over the last couple of decades, and so. Shifting gears to where we are today, yes, we've farmed out 3 different of the projects. One is to Chakana Copper, which is advancing the Soledad project. One is to Element 79 Gold, which is advancing the Lucero project. And most recently, Teck Resources. We JV'd with them on the Orbre project, and that's actually very, very interesting. It's quite a large project. They're looking for advancing the exploration efforts here. They've got a very large copper porphyry target that's very prospective. It's outcropping at surface. It's also host to a lot of skarn mineralization, which all of it looks, it's got great grab samples, and it's got a great potential here. So we're excited to hear them get started with their exploration program, likely in September. And our own projects, this enables us to step away from this model of only project generation to farm out. And, as we are living in this new paradigm where dollars are precious and difficult to come by for exploration, and certainly for project generation, and that's impacting us, and we can talk about that, or we're managing it, I should say. But it enables us to go and look at our great projects, and the projects that we have that we're very excited about. We want to advance ourselves, rather than take so far and then advance and pass the torch. And so the 2 projects that we're very excited about here, firstly, is Putumayo. And Putumayo is a high sulfidation epithermal type target, and so we're looking for bulk tonnage gold mineralization here at Putumayo. We had a drill program in the fall, and despite that the headline numbers weren't as fantastic as we'd hoped, the program was successful in proving up our thesis. And so the next program will be targeting something a little bit to the southeast, where we expect to find some of the shallower epithermal type mineralization. The second project is called Wynyak Punta, and Wynyak Punta is a high grade silver CRD type deposit, or target, I should say. And it rings with me because it's very much like what El Machito was in a CRD type deposit. And El Machito, I draw this comparison because of my own history, but El Machito has been in production for 75 years, and it's still in production, still producing. It started out as a high grade silver mine. And so, this is formed by fluids coming up from the source below and depositing metals along the way. And silver is the lightest of the metals that tend to be involved. It's a polymetallic deposit with copper, lead, and zinc, as well as silver. And silver is the last one. So it reaches the surface, and El Machito started out as a high-grade silver mine. And over time, over the past 75 years, it's been able to continue producing economically. And so I'm hopeful that that's what we have here. And the grab samples are fantastic at surface, 4,000 grams per ton silver. And as we kick off a drill program there, hopefully in the next coming months, we'll be able to drill down on this geophysical anomaly that's kind of a kilometer wide, kilometer deep. So a very interesting project there as well. So, there are two great kicks here at the can for Condor only, and we'll look to advance these as far as we can, hopefully all the way to production. And so, we're changing our strategy a little bit, moving away from that project generator model solely as we look to develop some of these projects ourselves.
I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about, obviously, the arrangements that you have with your, obviously, JV partners, as we've been speaking, with Chakana Copper, Element 79 Gold, and Teck Resources. What the relationships you have with them, I suppose also how they came about, and what you're looking to achieve with these joint ventures.
Well, I think every one of them is different. The team, our team has a lot of broad network contacts that are in touch with a lot of different groups. And so certainly in Peru, I can say that knows a lot of the majors directly. Similarly, our board is very experienced and has a lot of network. And so over time, there have been many introductions, and there have been projects that have been optioned off that have not been successful, or that we've sold off and completed. With these three in particular, we're going back, a number of years with Chakana and Element 79. They've one of them is an outright sale that upon spending their required amount on exploration and making milestone payments, that sale will be completed. So it's kind of sitting in escrow until the shares are sitting in escrow until the spend is complete and the milestone payments are complete. And that would be Element 79. With Chakana, they wanted 100% acquisition of the projects. And so over time, they'll be earning into that they'll be optioning they'll be earning into that full 100% position. The spend is complete on the work programs. And so there's just milestone payments remaining, and then they'll own that project outright. And so they've been able to put together a very strong resource at Soledad. There's more than 7 million tons of high-grade copper resource underground in these tourmaline breccias they've been exploring, and they continue to work on that project. And so, with these milestone payments, it's the way that the company's been able to sustain itself over the past number of years, through Soledad, through Element 79, and then most recently this Teck option. So Teck is earning into 75% of the Corberarico project through a work program that'll happen in a couple of phases, but ultimately, after they spend $10 million on the project and make about 1.1 million US in cash payments, they'll have earned into their 75%. And so this is a very large, again, it's a copper porphyry target with a beautiful gold kicker. We believe that, it's going to be a high priority project for everyone involved. And, ultimately this could be a great win for us as time goes on.
Obviously, with these joint ventures, they're all different. What would you say is the reason they were interested in joint venturing with yourself and with Condor? Was there any a common theme?
Well, I think there's there are a couple of different things like with for us with a large bulk tonnage copper porphyry type target. Firstly, for us to go and explore that doesn't make a ton of sense, only because we would blow our brains out. You need deep pockets to explore a porphyry, and so that's one reason for us to want to farm out Cobre Orco, even though it's got such potential, is that ultimately we would only be able to take it so far until we had to joint venture it. With the others, it was really a matter of we had found a good host of projects that were either gold rich in the case of Element 79 or copper rich in the sense of Chakana, and their motivations were they were looking for targets like the ones that we had in our portfolio. And our model at the time was to take these projects so far and then do deals to have them have partners come in and do the rest of the work. Why would they want to do it? I think that companies are obviously, shareholders are there to start their investment looking for success with the drill bit, and their strategy is different than ours, and so our interests can be aligned at the same time.
Obviously, your focus now is on it or in Peru, as obviously as your mining jurisdiction. What is the reason for the company just to focus in Peru and not in the other jurisdictions like Chile, where you were previously?
Right. Well, I think that it just evolved that way over time, and so they had some projects in Chile that were taken to different stages. They ended up selling them off. That the advent of Ever joining the team back in 2007, being based in Lima. Now he was looking at the projects in Chile and Argentina as well. Chile has become, and this I don't think had motivation for them to leave Chile because they've been gone for a while, but it's become very challenging to be an explorer in Chile just with the cost of the exploration concessions. Just last year they've tripled, right? So to hold on to those properties, it becomes very expensive, especially as a junior. And so I think there's been a bit of a shift in terms of juniors' willingness to be in Chile. That's not necessarily the case for Condor because we were gone before that. With respect to Argentina, the problem with Argentina, in my view, is the capital controls. And so, if you're producing, even if you're a producer in Argentina, a dollar in Argentina is worth 50 cents in Canada by the time you get it back here. So that can be very challenging as well. And for me, that's a reason to not want to be in Argentina currently. That may change over time, of course, because they've got a great resource endowment. So if the capital controls were to be reduced and you saw foreign direct investment go back in, then that might change. But with Peru, that's not the case. In Peru, it's a very mining friendly jurisdiction. They have a very good investment climate. There is a lot of investment into the country in mining. 60% of their exports are minerals from extraction in the country. The Minister of Mines and Energy is very supportive of the industry, and so even though there have been a lot of changes, with the new president of the country coming in back in 2021, they've started to rebuild, and so we're seeing an improvement in the response time and the relationship between the government and industry, and so. It's a very good place to do business. They have a huge resource endowment. They're the number 2 copper producer in the world. They're the number 8 gold producer in the world. And so, Peru is one of the best countries to be operating in for sure.
Obviously, most of us are aware that obviously financing for junior explorers has been obviously difficult probably for the last 18 to 24 months. How are you impacted by this, and what's I suppose the plan for future exploration drilling?
Yeah, so I guess one of the benefits of our model historically has been these milestone payments that have come in, shares that have come in, and the ability to sell those in the market. So it's been somewhat self-funding, and I think that what we're seeing is well, firstly, we're impacted because other companies are having a hard time raising money for projects that um, that may or may not be good. And I'm speaking just broadly. It's been very difficult to access traditional funds for exploration. And in Canada, you've got the flow through shares that are very popular with projects that are located in Canada. It'd be great if they instituted that in other countries. With respect to Canadian stocks that are raising capital for exploration in other countries, it's challenging. I mean, I faced that in one of my prior companies. We raised $3 million, and it was one of the hardest financings I'd ever done. So very challenging in that regard. We so One place we have to go look is untraditional sources, and so very much focused on looking at family offices, strategics, and other sources that are not the traditional funds that we would have gone to 8 years ago. And I won't name any, but there were probably 15 or 20 funds here in Canada that you could go and knock on their door. They had resource mutual funds, or they were hedge funds that would specialize in investing in resource companies, and they're not as keen anymore, or they don't have the funds. There've been massive redemptions over the last 5 years, and so we have to get creative about where we look, and talking to family offices that have a certain worldview and deeper pockets. If there are strategic investors who want to get involved in particular jurisdiction or commodity, they're another place that we go. With respect to Condor and our model, it's been successful in keeping the company alive without needing to go out and do big dilutive equity raises the last number of years. And we do have additional funds coming in through these partnerships that we have, and so that'll be helpful. I think that the money is going to go where the good projects are coming, and so it's going to continue to be challenging. I think it's a good reason to take a hard look at a lot of the juniors that are out there, because I think it's going to be a diminishing community, unfortunately, and a lot of the majors are going to have to bring some of this exploration in-house in order to continue to find new resources. There are a lot of restarts and a lot of companies that are looking at optimizing the assets that they already have. And so that'll be another thing that the majors are focused on in the short term. And so we just have to shine with the projects that we do have. And so here at Condor, we're very excited about Putumayo and about Winayak Punta, for example. And we do have the benefit of a good portfolio of projects that, while they don't necessarily have a lot of play with the market, and we don't get any value for them, they certainly backstop our valuation and our ability to optimize kind of future relationships. So no, financing is definitely a challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge. I don't see that going away. Despite the commodity prices, I think it's going to be very selective in terms of who gets financed and who doesn't.
Yeah. Obviously, you're involved in these 3 joint ventures. Is the company open to more joint ventures? And if they are, what kind of joint ventures would the company consider? Maybe looking at particular jurisdictions that they would focus on, maybe commodities. Is there sort of any criteria if you are out looking at potential other joint ventures?
Certainly, we're very opportunistic. So while we've been focused on Peru previously, I think that there are other great opportunities out there, and I'm not going to say no to a great project in Chile if it came back. And even though it's been expensive, if the numbers line up, then it could be very well worth doing. And so for Condor, we may look outside of Peru for the right opportunity, for sure. With respect to joint venturing on our properties, we still have 8 or 9 projects that we're looking for partners for. We are going to continue down the path exploring our Winayak Punta and Putumayo projects, and there are a couple of others that are little gems in the portfolio that we probably won't want to deal on, but we'll save those for another day. But there are good projects that we have, certainly, that have real potential that we'd be very happy to joint venture.
And what's the medium, or I suppose short to medium term outlook over the sort of next 6 to 12 months and what are the company, I suppose, focusing on during that course of time?
Yeah, so we had we have what's a new DIA application. So we're looking for a new permit for Putumayo East, the southeast, and that's our next focus for Putumayo. We were going through that process right now. We just had our community meeting locally, and it went off very, very well. And so now it's a matter of going back to the Ministry of Energy and Mines and working through that providing of information that they need for the drill program. And I expect that come September at some point, we'll be in good stead there and receive that drill permit. That's our definite hope. At Winac Punta, Winac Punta already has a DIA. It was ordered back in 2010. And because of its location, it has to go through a process called the Consulta Previa process. And in Consulta Previa, it's very much governed by the location of your project, because it might be in a culturally sensitive area, and so that there's a defined process where it's a more community consultation. We've had those meetings as well, and so it's also similarly going through the bureaucratic process with the ministry, and we'll expect to see the ability to drill there in September as well, September-October timeframe. And then, the third thing that we're looking internally is getting back to the community where our Andrea project is located. So it's funny, but when he was at Newmont, had discovered that Brea Pampa deposit, which was later a very profitable high sulfidation epithermal mine run by Newmont and then subsequently Buenaventura. And 15 kilometers away is the Andrea project, which is equally attractive. And so there's been issues in the area with mines and other people's projects that have kind of turned the community off, and it's been challenging to get that going. But that's changing now. I think there's been a change in the local leadership, and certainly some reignited interest in exploration stories. So we're starting to have those conversations, and that's going to take a long time to advance Andrea, but it's a very big prize, and so we're excited to keep that going too. So those are really the next things on the horizon this year. Without any further plans, things can come up, of course.
Yeah. And lastly, I wonder if you had any final closing comments. Our audience are predominantly people from the mining industry. So people could be on site, could be in corporate offices. I wonder if you had any closing comments, or maybe even any educational tips that you could give our audience.
I think, the most important thing I've always thought of in my career is it's important to be able to reinvent yourself. I've experienced that. I've lived it. So it's always been interesting to change up what you're doing. And in my career, again, making that switch from what I was doing as an engineer to switching over to the capital markets, to switching over to the corporate life, it was always very interesting. I think my background in all those different pods of experience have helped me through the career, and we'll see what's next. I'm just starting on this adventure here at Condor, of course. But I think in the coming decades, who knows, right? And so I think people need to be open to the idea of changing. Everyone can have their long-term goals, but I think it's important to change things up rather than get stuck in something for 30 years. It just keeps life interesting, right? So I've been successful that way. I think that it's certainly a rewarding type of path when it's a little bit unknown, but I'd encourage people to look to branch out into new things and new experiences.
Yeah, great last words. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story, telling us or sharing the story about Condor Resources and what your plans are for the future and the future of the company. If our audience wants to follow the story, wants to obviously get news flow delivered to their inboxes, and obviously just follow the company's journey, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, so our website is condorresources.com, and there's a sign up there, and you can see our corporate presentation. We are on Twitter and LinkedIn, and both of those handles are at Condor Resources.
Yeah, we can include those in the show notes for easy access. So wish all the best for the remainder of the year. Perhaps you can come on the podcast sometime next year and give us an update and obviously the progress made on those joint ventures.
Sounds great. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for listening. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing this episode far and wide. People within the industry, but people outside of our mining industry as well, to improve the branding of our industry. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.